Hey everybody, this is Perch, and responding to a viewer question. Well, just kind of gray and rainy. I like rain and I like trees and all the rest. So I'm going to miss that. About it's funny people as I've announced I'm moving, and if you haven't listened to the other shows, I am moving. I'm moving pretty dramatically down to Texas, which is not a place I would say I ever really pictured myself winding up. But okay, and like everything else, it's temporary. 2 years or less. But what's interesting is people are like, "Oh, you're going to miss, the culture and the people and of Seattle." And with no stereotypes here, I'm not going to miss the people or the culture. And some people, obviously, I have some friends here, but Seattle, when I first moved here, and then I hopped around a bunch, as many of you know, I spent time overseas and everything else. I People are always saying, "Well, Seattle people are so friendly and also so passive." And one of the jokes they used to get is if like you got to a four-way stop, everybody would just sit there waiting for everyone else to go. Like, no, you go, no, you go, no, you go, no, you go, and that really. Well, that was accurate. That's how Seattle was. I think things have changed, certainly through the last 10 years, 12 years or so. No, it didn't all just change via Trump. It has been changing. And Seattle's a more unfriendly place, I would say, in a lot of cases. Now you get pockets of people who like the community, but it's a very intolerant place. And not just about politics, but about the car you drive, about the place you work. I mean, there's weird little pockets that have grown up here, and I won't be sorry to see that go. But I am going to miss the trees and the rain and clouds, and I like that aspect of it. Being close to the ocean, close to the mountains, it was good. But anyway, so driving around, have this viewer mail here, and this mail goes like this. It says, "Hey Perch, somewhat as a response to your old fans versus new fans video. This was some time ago. I'm trying to get through. The last 2 weeks, I have so much mail. It's I think in the last 2 weeks, at least 1,000 emails have come through. Anyway, how do you feel about all the soft reboots, retcons we've been getting in the last 15-ish years? Do you think they make it easier for new fans to get into comics and serve as that jumping on point, or do they do more to disrupt the story? Also, unrelated, but what would you say has been your favorite run or event from the last 10, 15 years of comics? Any publisher?" I'll answer the second one first. What has been my favorite run? Unfortunately, if we're talking a run, it's generally things outside the big two. I have enjoyed The Walking Dead. I've enjoyed Saga to some extent. I enjoyed things. I guess it is with the big two. I've enjoyed some things that Vertigo has done. If we're going back truly 15 years, I liked Why the Last Man. That may be a little further back. I like Fables quite a bit. I'm trying to think in Marvel. I mean, I've liked plenty with Marvel, but for me, a run, and I realize this is my definition, may be different from others. I'm thinking that's at least kind of 36 issues, at least. I mean, talking like 3 years. That's kind of how I define a run for me, because I've liked various other things. I was one of the few people, I think, I may be wrong about this, but Mark Miller's Fantastic Four run, I actually enjoyed, and I know a lot of people criticized that pretty heavily, and it was a short run, but I liked what he did on that. I did like Jonathan Hickman on Fantastic Four, although it's a little bit more uneven than people remember. They kind of cite that as an amazing comic run and just one of the best takes on the comic. And I went back and reread that about a month or two ago, and it wasn't as good as I remembered. Still good, but there was some pretty jarring stuff in there. Biggest thing I think I would say in particular is the whole Johnny Storm death, Spider-Man coming in, and then Johnny Storm is not dead. That whole back and forth was it's clunky if you read it now. It doesn't come across like you hope. The beginning with kind of some of the stuff with Mr. Fantastic and Reed and the Council of Reeds and all that kind of stuff's pretty good. But it's still good. Bear no mistake about it. I mean, we're now in the camp of criticizing something. Is it good or is it great? It was still good, but I think it's been exaggerated a little bit. To the first part of the question, I absolutely think that the soft reboots, no question about it, very definitively, I think they have not helped new readers come in. I think the sales numbers kind of prove that. and I think they have hurt. I think they have served as a jumping off point more often than not. And I'll use this example, by the way, because every now and then somebody comes into the comments or they argue, they're like, well, I think these comics are just fine. Like I say something about, Miss Marvel. I remember people coming in with Miss Marvel, and it was like, I did the sales analysis video where the comic started out well and it grew a pretty solid little audience. And then it had a reboot, and then it had that Civil War II tie-in, which was dreadful, and then another reboot. And you saw just the sales tank after that. And I've had plenty of people come and go, well, I thought those issues were great. Cool. I'm glad you did. I hope you bought it. Not enough people thought like you because the sales divided in half and then in half again. And, here we are. Keep in mind when you're doing a sales analysis or you're doing are customers coming in or going out, that's not an emotional analysis. That's not a subjective analysis. It's pretty binary. Are the numbers going up, or are the numbers going down, or I guess are the numbers staying the same? Three options. If the numbers go down and you love the comic, that doesn't mean you have to stop loving the comic. And I do not get this about people on the internet in particular. If they like something and financially it didn't do well, it's like their brain can't process that. They just can't deal with this idea of something that they like was not popular. And so then they flail around wanting to blame everyone else and almost deny reality. Well, I don't care if you said it wasn't very good. It's like, nope, I didn't say it was not very good. I said it didn't sell well. They're different things. There's plenty of stuff I like that does not sell well. There's a guy on Twitter who has a Hawkman fan account, who loves Hawkman, and seems like a nice bloke. And he loves that comic, and it didn't sell well, and he's pissed. But he accepted it like a man, or like an adult, I should say, because he accepted it like an adult. That it's like, well, I love the comic, but apparently not enough other people did to sustain it. He didn't throw weird little tantrums about how everyone else is wrong and how the comic actually was doing great. But those people seemingly are far and few between. Anyway, the point is, I think if you look at comics like Miss Marvel, when it first came out, it was successful. Miles Morales, successful. Moon Girl, in trade, successful. What's one thing all three of those comics have in common? Well, the beginning, the time when they were, in some cases most successful, or at least you saw the pendulum swinging up with all three of them, were not in events. They were not in a relaunch. They were not in a reboot. They were just new characters coming out. And therein lies the big secret myth and frustration with a lot of comics, because in many cases, if you want to get new characters over, the best way to do that is to just roll out the new character. Don't put a lot of nonsense around it. Don't tie it into an event. Don't make a big parade around the fact that you've got this new character. Just focus on one foot in front of the other. New comic, new character. Here it is. We're here to tell you the best story possible. That does tend to work. Not every time, but it does tend to work. Every time you tie it into something else, be it a reboot, a relaunch, an event, or God help you, you launch this thing and then you relaunch it a few issues later. Mighty Avengers, Al Ewing, that version. It relaunched, 12 issues in? May not have even gotten that far. It clearly shows from the numbers that shed viewers. The sales analysis video, here's another example. Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel's been rebooted multiple times. Kelly Sue DeConnick took it, and then they rebooted it with another Kelly Sue DeConnick, and then some other people took it, and then finally Kelly Thompson has it. And you see clearly, again, you may have loved various parts of that run, that's fine. But financially, every time they relaunched it, every time there was a soft reboot, every time that happened, it lost viewers. However, and this is the other thing, when it stabilized, when basically this comic was allowed to breathe and continue and just have its own storyline and go, you see the numbers tick back up again. Not huge, but you do see them start to go the other direction. Kelly Thompson's Captain Marvel did just that. It relaunched. By the way, when I'm saying relaunched and lost people, not with issue one always spikes sales because they pump out variant covers and they do all that. But by issue two, you can clearly see it's losing every time it relaunches or reboots. But with Kelly Thompson's run, what you're seeing is that it did exactly that, sold real well, then lost a ton of people, and then it kind of stumbled around for a while, and then it started to slowly curve back up. Why? Well, because Marvel finally was able to convince people they were not going to just restart it. And they focused on, here are some storylines. I haven't liked all those storylines. I didn't like the Captain Marvel is, got a bad, a dark costume and has got to go take out the Avengers. I found that storyline kind of dumb, but it clearly resonated with some people because the sales did back up. And if you talk about a publisher wide kind of reboot, same things. If the publisher does a reboot and relaunches a bunch of their titles, you will see initial interest, and then you will see falling sales every time. Again, not every time. If you go in and look, it's 95% of the time. Okay, so just to be accurate, yes, there have been some instances where it works out, but the story it always shows is that it does not bring in new readers like they claim, like the marketing department says, and instead it sheds readers. And it takes longer each time then to build it back up again. Now I'm guessing, there are a decent amount of people on this channel don't care for Captain Marvel, wouldn't read that book. Okay. But it's undeniable that when that title was left alone and they just rolled out storylines and they did, Captain Marvel goes to an alternate universe, and then Captain Marvel has to fight Star, then Captain Marvel goes to another alternate universe, then Captain Marvel, I'm not doing these in order, and then Captain Marvel gets kidnapped by the Kree and forced to be bad for a while, and then Captain Marvel breaks up with her boyfriend and sleeps with Doctor Strange. These storylines, the more there are of these stories that look like arcs, the more people do decide to settle in and buy. And that's the magic formula, stability. It's a crazy thing. But reboots and relaunches, they do not bring in the new readers. And I'm curious if there's ever evidence it really did that. I think you can go back and you can look at Crisis and you can look at Legends and but I think if you're being truthful about that analysis, you do have to admit that while you were rebooting stuff, you were also bringing in some pretty major top talent to work on the comic. And so the question becomes, was it the reboot that brought in the higher sales, or was it the fact that, you've got John Byrne suddenly in the company who was red hot at that time doing comics? Like what truly was it that tipped the numbers up? I would argue that's the reboot, and it's more the talent. And the reboots, as much as the publishers kind of fooled themselves into thinking that that's how they wipe the slate clean and get new people in, I think they lose more people than they gain. And the only gains are brought in through stunts, like number ones, collectors, variants, creative teams on books, but overall it's erosion. That's my answer for you anyway. It's a great question. Thanks for asking it, and hopefully be curious in the comments if you have a different opinion. But I think the numbers support this pretty strongly at this point. Again, there's always exceptions, but kind of across the board, this is a pretty consistent picture that's painted. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, and thanks for listening.